Hey everybody, it's Martian Monkey here, and this is going to be my Star Wars Kevin Feige video. That's right, Kevin Feige is set to produce a Star Wars movie. This is so exciting! Now, first of all, we have to go over what this means, not just for Kevin Feige alone, but what this means for Kathleen Kennedy, Sony with Spider-Man, because that has been blowing up over the weekend and over the past few months, just as a story progressing overall. But yeah, we have to talk about it. There's other people that are involved in the storyline. But first of all, let's talk about Kevin Feige. So Kevin Feige is producing a Star Wars film. Not sure when, not sure how, not sure when he has the time. This guy has so much bandwidth. It's incredible. I mean, wow. The MCU, Disney Plus MCU, and maybe even Marvel Television. Who knows? Let's see what happens with that division. Maybe it'll just become Disney Plus overall. Maybe they'll reboot Marvel Television because we still have Cloak and Dagger and Runaways. But who knows? We'll see. Everything else is getting canceled, though. So I don't know if he'll take that on. But then he also has Star Wars now. And then, of course, Sony with the MCU Spider-Man deal that just got reinstated. We'll make a separate video for that. I'll talk a little bit about it here in a minute. But yeah, this guy's taken on a lot of stuff. So I don't know how I feel about that. Can Kevin Feige do it? Can he deliver multiple promises that he's made to fans and that he's made to Disney? I mean, that's important because he's the most looked at producer in Hollywood right now. Maybe even the most looked at comic book official right now when it comes to comic book film. I'm talking like directors, producers, stuff like that. Us actors, all of those categories from comic book films. He's the most looked at. He's the most looked at person in Hollywood right now behind the camera, which is important because, again, he's going to have to perform on all levels that he's doing, and now including Star Wars. But what does this mean for other people involved with this deal? Specifically, Kathleen freaking Kennedy. Now, I argued with a lot of people on Twitter recently when this headline broke, because the Hollywood Reporter was the one that got this story, and they had released a thread in their tweet that had said Kevin Feige will be working alongside Kathleen Kennedy to further the Star Wars brand. And then I responded saying, AKA, Kathleen Kennedy ain't a leader of a franchise. She can't run a freaking franchise. And it's so obvious. I mean, it really is. When you look at multiple factors, and here are some of those factors. All the Star Wars films that have come out in the last recent year, so anything that has Daisy Ridley in that era, haven't performed as well with fans as hoped. And also, it has a whole domino effect. Now, Force Awakens is pretty much the only one, well, and Rogue One, to come out unscathed by this Star Wars era, right? Force Awakens, everybody pretty much liked that foundation. I don't know why, because I gave it a glowing review, but I feel like I shouldn't have back in the day when that movie came out, because there are some things within that foundation that I think were just all wrong. I think that Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams should have done a movie starring all of the three original stars, and then proceeded to do another trilogy, or I guess to kick off the characters that they introduce now, like Rey and Finn and all that, because that just would have made more sense. Now you can't do it, because Carrie Fisher tragically passed and Han Solo is dead in this franchise. So, can't do it now, should have done it earlier. But not only that, but look at The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson made one of the most controversial movies in science fiction of all time with The Last Jedi. And Solo underperformed at the box office, like, a lot, right? So Kathleen Kennedy just can't do it, and it's so obvious. And people disagree with that on Twitter, and we got in a little bit of a spat over it. But here's the thing. If Disney was competent and Kathleen Kennedy and all the producers, the smaller role producers and everybody else behind the camera that she's working with on Star Wars, if all of them were doing a good job, we wouldn't be seeing this headline. Kevin Feige wouldn't have been brought in. The only reason why we're seeing this headline is because, one, Kevin Feige is the most successful movie producer quite possibly of all time at this point, next to Spielberg and Lucas, right? He's the most successful, and two, he can fix this brand because Kathleen can't. And so and he's already in-house. It makes complete sense. In-house meaning they both work for Disney and they're both Disney brands, which means they all get 100% of the profits. Meaning that Kevin Feige can make so much money now that he's taking over the reins from Kathleen Kennedy that at this point she can't really say no. And not to mention that J.J. Abrams was rumoredly, is that even a word? I don't think it is, but he was rumored to be up for the position of leader of this franchise. He was supposed to be the head producer, but of course he said no and declined. So Kathleen Kennedy is stuck with this job. They can't find anybody else to do it. Also, Star Wars is not just going downhill in the movies with box office and fan opinion, but it's also going down in terms of theme parks. Star Wars Land has had a lot of trouble. They recently got rid of the head of that division, who's been at the Disney parks for so long, because they can't bring people in. I actually just had a friend that went to Star Wars Land a couple days ago, and she said she had a good time, and she was enjoying it, but yeah, the sales just aren't as what they should be. And even though she had a good time, I had to point out, I was like, did you know that the head of Star Wars Land had to step down because it's not making the mark it needs to be? And she was even surprised by that. So it's true. I mean, if you look at what Star Wars is going to right now, it ain't looking so good. And that's why Kevin Feige is here. And I think that people need to understand that. So again, that's why he's here. That's the whole reason why he's involved. But let's talk about Kathleen Kennedy specifically. Kathleen Kennedy, unfortunately, has always shadowed a male producer. And so I think that this will be good for her, because while I think that she's not very well creatively, I think she is a really good business person when it comes to working off of somebody, bouncing off of somebody else's creative energy. That's why she got the job originally in the first place for Star Wars. Now, I'm not saying that she's a bad person, and I'm not saying she can't do well in this industry. Again, I think it's great that she's going to be able to bounce off Kevin Feige, who is the most successful producer of all time right now, and maybe create something even better than before, right? And I'm talking before, like how Star Wars was in its peak. Maybe this is the new start of the best era for Star Wars so far, after all, right? So I'm excited for that. I think Kathleen Kennedy, I think, again, she's really well business-wise, and I think that it's cool that she shadowed so many other producers, so it'll be fun to see how she works with Feige. Maybe not, maybe she'll be a pain, who knows, but I think it's pretty exciting to see where she's going from here. Again, she just can't run the franchise. She can run someone with her, I just don't think she can run it on her own. It's just obvious that she's not a creative force to be reckoned with. So that's Kathleen Kennedy. Now let's talk about other female producers involved, and that's Amy Pascal with Sony and Spider-Man. So of course, one of Sony's headlines that was up recently, I think it was maybe early this week or last week, is that Kevin Feige apparently didn't have time for Sony and Spider-Man. That was one of the headlines that came out of the whole Spider-Man situation before he got reinstated. And then Kevin Feige takes on Star Wars. I'm sure Sony was like, what the F? Right? They were like, are you kidding me? But again, we'll talk about Sony in a separate video. But Amy Pascal has to factor in this because, of course, if Spider-Man wasn't reinstated, that would have meant that Kevin Feige had even more time for Star Wars and less time to consider Spider-Man. Of course, that's over his head. That's over Kevin Feige's head. Disney is really the one that's handling the whole Spider-Man deal, which again was reinstated. So we'll talk about that once we get into that video. But Star Wars was a real big punch for Sony because that was kind of the breaking point for them, was that Kevin Feige was going to deviate and put his attention on Star Wars. So now that they're back together, I mean, he has a lot of work to do, right? And finally, I think that this is going to affect the talent involved with Star Wars. I don't know if Daisy Ridley's going to stay anymore. I think that at this point she's out. I think all of the new cast is out. I don't know how I don't think Kevin Feige wants anything to do with Kathleen Kennedy. I think, if you've seen what he's been doing with Jeff Loeb, again, in Marvel Television, Jeff Loeb runs that. It's just being wiped out of the face of the earth. So I think that Kevin Feige is going to do the same thing with Star Wars. He's just going to wipe it clean and start over. It's been rumored that Brie Larson's going to take the reins from Daisy Ridley. I think that's a terrible idea. I think Brie Larson is divisive, if not more divisive than Daisy Ridley, but he does have a star in mind already to star in his Star Wars movie. So what do you think of this? I mean, do you think Kevin Feige can handle doing a Star Wars film? And do you think that this will be the next start of a bigger era for Star Wars? And what do you think about Brie Larson possibly starring in it? That's like the funniest question, right? But again, are you excited for this next chapter of Star Wars? And do you think Kevin Feige was the right choice? Don't forget to comment down below, like, favorite, and subscribe. And I will see you guys later for some more videos. Bye-bye.